My name is James Steffes. I retired as an Engineman Chief, E7. By the middle of 1962, my enlistment was up and I got out. Went back to Minnesota, worked around a few things, and wished I could have re-enlisted. I moved down to Newport News, worked in the shipyard, and I joined up with one of the reserve units there. And so I was involved in Air Mate, third class engineman. Then they converted me over to machinist mate. I made second class machinist mate, and they had a big layoff in the shipyard. So the XO of the Reserve Center was the personnel officer at Newport News Shipyard. And it was no time at all. I got set orders, receiving the station. I got signed to a repair ship up in Newport, Rhode Island, submarine or destroyer tender. And I was on there when my enlistment was going to come up to go from reserve to regular Navy. And engineman was a $10,000 re-enlistment bonus, tax-free if you're in the war zone. So I volunteered, and my detailer says, well, he says, you know, you used to be an engineman. If you were an engineman again, you'd be gone already. So I took the EN2 exam. I no sooner got promoted, and I had orders to the switchboats. And I went to the West Coast, checked in down in Coronado, went through the school. We went to SEER training in Warner Springs, and they were forming up crews, you know, with an officer and then one of each different rating. But they were short on enginemen for quite a while. So here all of a sudden they all caught up with us. There was 13 of us, all second class, first class, and none of the other people put a class together. So they decided to do us special. So we missed out on a couple things. We didn't go out and play in the harbor, and we didn't get to go to 29 Palms and shoot the 50 calibers. But we spent a lot of time on the engines and electrical systems, piping systems, much more than the regular guys would have got. So they sent us into Vietnam, and we got to Cam Bay, and they had already decided we were going. And he said, well, I'll give you guys an hour, you can swap around, see which you want to go. Well, all I could remember was I just spent the night in Cameron, and the print of my body was still in the sheet when I got up. And hot, humid, and I remember Da Nang had air-conditioned barges. So I volunteered, and that's where I went. So I was up there in Coastal Division 12. I joined a crew, and they called us Super Snipes because we had spent so much time in training. And so I got on this crew, and shortly after that we took over the PCF-12. Well, we didn't live on them. We lived either on a barge or in barracks. But there was bunks for 5, but nobody. You just slept there and go on patrol. When you see this around the time river rats, when I got down to Catload, we went from 24-hour patrols to 3.5-day patrols in the river. And of course, you know, you don't shower and shave or nothing for 3.5 days, you start to look like a rat. That's where the nickname came. But your crew was pretty tight. I mean, typical routine would be during the day we would be steaming up and down in our patrol area, stopping sampans and junks, water taxi, and searching and examining their papers. And then at night, usually around 10 o'clock, we would set the watch, and be a 2-hour watch. The officer in charge and 2 of the guys would be on one thing, and then the LPO, like myself, would be on the other. And then we just moved up and down the river, or in the case of the ocean, up and down our patrol area. And if something happened, of course, you wake everybody up and go. But the nights were usually pretty quiet, except the boats were allowed to be out fishing, but they had to be lighted and they weren't allowed to move. And so we would watch the radar, and if you saw a guy that was moving, you ran over there and stopped him. Because the Viet Cong would use that opportunity to smuggle anything through there. So that was a typical day. Right after I got into Vietnam, my brother, he was over there in the Army down in the train. And so he decided he wanted to come up and visit me. So he went to his sergeant major, he was down in the train, and he says, I'd like to go up and spend a little time with my brother. He says, well, sure. He says, here. He says, take this piece of paper, this letter, have it signed by this colonel that's over there in Da Nang at the, you know, the White Elephant. He says, take your time, a couple weeks. So next thing you know, he shows up, and he got there about the time we were inventorying and taking over PCF 12. And so he went out on patrol with us, and it was pretty interesting. And when we left, and he left to go back down in the train, he said goodbye to us, and we went up to that patrol area where we ended up at the DMZ with all of that. So when years later I got involved with that Swift Boat Veterans for Truth, and I came out here, and Tom and I went down to the hotel, and he met Admiral Hoffman, and he was taking pictures around there. We're sitting around the table, and Admiral says, who the hell are you? He said, well, I'm Jim's brother. He said, do you ever ride a swift boat? Yeah, for a couple of weeks. Come over and sit down. So, and now he's considered a Swiftie. So he was, you know, well accepted in there, and my boat officer gave him an M16, and when we went alongside board and search, he went down and checked everything just like we did. And he said he wanted to have the full experience, and they said, no, you're going to have it, and he really enjoyed it. His regular job with the Army was he was like a spook in crypto communications down in the train. So coming up there and spending it with me was pretty interesting.